Let's kick it off with a bang, and let's make sure that we are all very, very clear. If regulations destroy Bitcoin, there is one person that we can thank, and that is Michael Saylor. He is force feeding regulations down everybody's throat now because he feels like Bitcoin's being threatened. So if Bitcoin fails, as soon as regulations happen, we know who we get to blame. If these regulators allow people on Wall Street to pass rules and pass laws now that quote unquote Bitcoin is regulated, and the end result of that is Wall Street has the ability to manipulate and destroy and kill Bitcoin, we know who to blame. All right, what up YouTube? We're going to talk about regulations and how the Bitcoin maxis, now that their poor Bitcoin is maybe not performing as well as they thought. Maybe when Michael Saylor told you to take out a loan, take out a second mortgage on your house and buy Bitcoin at $60,000 and now Bitcoin's $20,000. Now we need regulations. The only question you should ask yourself about regulations is, what regulations in Wall Street have done anything positive for the middle class? When has any regulation that Wall Street has ever done, or any regulation that the United States government has ever put in place that has benefited the retail investor? Regulations are for Wall Street. They are for these corrupt, crooked politicians, these Wall Street elites. Those are the people that want regulations. Michael Saylor's now one of them. Anthony Papalano's now one of them, because they want to do everything they can to make sure that there is no other threats to Bitcoin. Obviously, Bitcoin can't do it itself, or it would have done it.
When many people talk about the cryptocurrency industry, they lump everything together. They simply say, what are all the assets? All those 19,000 cryptocurrencies. They must all be the same, right? Well, that's not really true. And ultimately, there's only one asset that has the regulatory clarity. That's Bitcoin. It has already been stated by the SEC, the CFTC, and other regulatory bodies around the world that Bitcoin is not a security. And that clarity has allowed not only for large financial institutions to come in, buy the asset and hold it, they offer it to their clients, but it also has allowed public companies to actually put Bitcoin on their balance sheets. And so when you look at regulatory clarity, it serves as a tailwind for these assets. But now the question turns, what about the rest of the industry? Those 19,000 cryptocurrencies, there isn't any clarity. Michael Saylor was recently on CNN with Julia Chatterley, and he was asked, what do you think's going to happen? Is clarity good for the industry?
So before we dive into this, what regulations and what type of clarity are we talking about? Are we talking about the regulations that allowed stonks to happen? Are we talking about regulations that just approved the Bitcoin short ETF that everybody's freaking out about? Are we talking about the same regulations that allow a senator like Nancy Pelosi to execute trades using insider trading? Are we talking about regulations that allow senators like Nancy Pelosi, who make $200,000 a year, to beat and outtrade the S&P 500, outtrade the best Wall Street traders in the world, outtrade the best algorithmic trading softwares in the world, because she's allowed to gain access to insider information, aka insider trading? Are these the regulations? Is this the clarity that we really need? Is this going to help the average middle class investor? Absolutely not. You guys are looking out for yourselves. You guys care about protecting your big VC hedge fund bags, and you're willing to suck the D of any regulator that wants to come in and do anything pro Bitcoin. And I'm going to laugh my ass off if this kills Bitcoin. If regulations destroy Bitcoin, we're going to be singing a different tune here really quick.
Does Bitcoin go back up, and does it take regulation of all kinds to get us there, to rule out some of the obvious criticisms that have been pushed over the last 2 months?
Yeah, I think it's clear the people are confused, and regulation will be constructive because clarity will help the market mature. The people are confused about what's a currency, what's a commodity, what's a security, what are tokens. There's 19,000 cryptos out there. I think we can see in the crypto crash that the average investor has been taken advantage of by traders and by wildcat crypto banks. And as the regulators come in and they clear up this confusion and they introduce rules of the road, it's going to be good for mainstream investors. It's going to be good for corporations. It will catapult the industry from the entrepreneurial offshore anything goes stage into a institutional mature asset class.
It'll be good for regulations. It'll be good for Wall Street. It'll be good for Michael Saylor. It'll be good for elite players. But don't forget, if you are not an accredited investor, you can't invest in ICOs. You are completely blocked from participating in any new crypto startup. And where is all the money made? in the new startups, in getting in day one ground level. How many times are you going to buy Shiba and get wiped out on Shiba before you learn your lesson? Did regulations stop Bernie Madoff? Did regulations stop any of the giant Ponzi schemes? Did regulations stop the subprime mortgage bubble? Nope. Did regulations prevent the dot-com bubble? Nope. Did regulations prevent the last economic collapse? Nope. Did regulations help the feds print infinite amounts of money? Yes, they did. So these are the regulations, these are the government agencies, these are the type of players that you think are looking out for the middle class. When has any regulator ever looked out for the middle class? So don't get it twisted. Don't let people like Anthony Popolano and these players that have these ginormous bags of Bitcoin force feed you regulations. Bitcoin cannot be regulated. It cannot be stopped. It cannot be all of these things. They preach it. And yet here they are trying to force feed us regulations because it's going to protect their Bitcoin bags. And if it doesn't, things are going to get very interesting. Now, I'm not betting against Bitcoin. I'm betting on Bitcoin because all of these big elite players are trying to wipe everything else off the map. There's going to be a handful, maybe 5 cryptocurrencies, maybe 10 that actually can fail the Howey test. And I know that Kadena is one of them. By design, was designed to fail the Howey test. So if there's going to be one cryptocurrency that's not going to be a security that will fall into the same class of decentralization as Bitcoin, it will be Kadena. Let's hear what Pomp has to say.
Now, Michael's got a great point here, that as we get more clarity, it'll actually serve as a boom for the industry. There's been a lot of problems. There was built up leverage. There was plenty of people who are misleading their customers or investors. As we get more regulatory clarity, some of that coming in more disclosures, some of it coming in the prevention of allowing people to do nefarious things, it likely will give the confidence to many investors, both retail and institutional, to come into the space. It will also elicit more entrepreneurs to come in and start to build products and services that allow for the global adoption of these technologies. Bitcoin is a decentralized, neutral technology. It does not enrich the creator in any way. Simply, Bitcoin continues to execute code, just free speech, in a way that allows anyone in the world to move words around. That's unique to Bitcoin. There was no pre-mine for the team. There was no enrichment of the founders. There was no sale of fundraising to be able to finance the project. That's why the SEC and CFTC have said that Bitcoin is not a security. And it's likely going to be a different outcome for many, many other projects in the space. That doesn't mean that they'll necessarily all go away. It just means that they'll have to conform to the securities laws in their various jurisdictions. And ultimately, as we get more regulatory clarity, more people will start to actually come into the Bitcoin industry. They'll come into the crypto industry too. They simply want to understand what are the rules of the road, and then they'll abide by them. Regulatory clarity is going to be good for the industry. But just remember that clarity doesn't mean you get the rules that you want. It simply means that everyone now understands what the rules are, and if you break the rules, you'll get in trouble. The need for regulatory clarity is starting to heat up. We've seen many, many historic collapses, some in tokens, some in ecosystems, and some in funds. Obviously, regulators, politicians, and many other people in positions of oversight, they're salivating to try to get their hands around this industry so they can create rules of the road that everyone has to follow. Bitcoin is not a security, continues to grow, even though the price has come down. As we get more and more regulatory clarity, I think many investors, entrepreneurs, and market participants will come to the conclusion that Bitcoin is the signal among a lot of noise.
So here's what I think about regulations. I think regulations are a joke. I think that they are designed to make the rich richer. They are not going to help the middle class. They are not going to do anything to add any value to yourself as the middle class. They're going to help separate that divide between the rich and the poor, and they allow people like Michael Saylor and these rich players to regulate a market that shouldn't be regulated. And here's the kicker. Ethereum going to zero, Avalanche going to zero, Solana going to zero, Harmony going to zero. All of these projects are going to zero, and regulations would never save any of them. Regulations would just make it worse. They would make retail investors like myself feel like we can trust those projects because they are regulated, when in reality, the tech is bad. All of these blockchains are going to go to zero. 99% of these blockchains will go to zero, but it has nothing to do with regulations or scams. It has everything to do with the fact that their businesses or their software is old, outdated, and it cannot evolve. Solana going to zero, Avalanche going to zero, Harmony going to zero, Polkadot going to zero, Ethereum going to zero. These are all going to go to zero. But regulators can't come out and regulate them now, because if they regulate them now, we're going to all blame regulations. We're all going to blame the crash of crypto on regulations. So as the entire market implodes right here on this next push to the downside, this is when we're going to see regulators step in and say, hey, y'all needed us. We needed to help protect you guys. When have regulators ever protected anybody but themselves? Never. Drop some comments below. Let me know what you guys think. Hey, you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Give the video a thumbs up. Then check out my Kadena playlist. This one blockchain is going to change every aspect of life as we know it. And then come join us live on my second YouTube channel. Love you guys.